now go over to the
Rockingham.
Rockingham, what is it? I guess it's a combo court. I think they have both Superior and District Courts in this building. Anyway, we're there for District Court. Right outside of the District Court doors, there is what would normally be like a wall with a bulletin board or something on it, but no, instead there's a very large, wide piece of artwork that looks like it should be hanging up in Hannibal Lecter's personal gallery.
I'm not joking.
It looks like it looks like carved up human skin or something.
Yeah, like Wild Bill decided to make this art piece.
It's so creepy. I wish I don't know if anybody's ever photographed it.
Well, I have video of it on my YouTube channel. Yeah,
it's so creepy, and I think
that really is. I was going to ask you: is this coming close to the Denver airport artwork? Because there's some
Denver's definitely full of symbolism. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's like that. I don't know. What if any symbolism might be included in this artwork? It just looks completely out of place. Like you don't expect to see something like this in a courthouse.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it, honestly.
And it just seems it's more than bizarre. It's creepy.
Yeah,
and that's the best way I can describe it. If you haven't seen it, then if you haven't seen it, check out Joe's channel.
It's very fleshy. Yeah.
And it's like different tones of flesh.
Oh yeah, this of human skin. Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like.
That asks me, it makes me want to ask, who's in charge of courthouses?
The state.
Yeah, but who was the one that made the call to hang
which
that?
individual?
We can do a records request.
I don't know.
That would actually be fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. It's like one of those things where they're just kind of hanging out there, the things that they're interested in, right? Like, we're going to destroy the Bill of Rights. We've made an actual diorama of the destruction of the Bill of Rights hanging in the courthouse, and we take pieces of people's lives. And so we've got a big piece of your skin up on
That's a pound of flesh.
Yeah, literally. More than that. This thing's huge.
They're people collectors, right? Isn't that what they are?
No, is it a painting?
No, it's like a sculpture. It's
like clay or something.
It's 3D, so it's not flat. It's got depth to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like bolted in there. There's screws. I was taking a closer look at it today because I've only ever really kind of glanced at it and just been creeped out by it. I took a closer look at it, and it's like there's heavy-duty screws screwing these pieces together up there, and it's looks like a heavy piece of art.
Yeah, I found some really strange art in my time in really weird spots, but this is definitely very unusual.
I didn't even think to look, even though I was looking at the art, I didn't even think to look to see if it said who the artist was or anything like that
it was
somewhere.
some Arabic name. I'll bring it up, but it's no big deal.
So we were there this morning because a friend of the show, Skylar Bennett, he is AKA Savage Truth 603. He was on trial for an event that happened a year and a half ago. At this point, it was the end of 2020, if I recall correctly, when one night there was going to be a candlelight vigil was going to take place outside of the governor's house here in New Hampshire. This was part of a series of different protests that have been going on outside of the governor's house. So these have been happening for weeks. Every week, people were out there protesting on Saturday morning or whenever it was. And so this one was different because it was an evening protest, and they were going to do a candlelight vigil. And I wasn't able to make it because being in the evening, I'm on the air, so we were here doing the show, but Bill Domenico called in while this was going down to announce what was happening. And what happened was they brought in close to maybe more than 24 cops, including at least a dozen shock troops. So there were like your normal outfitted with the hat and everything, wide brimmed hat kind of state troopers that were on scene, 6 to 8 cars of them, more than 2 per car or whatever. And then after the activists had arrived and been threatened by the state troopers that were already on the scene, plus they had some local cops as well, then they brought in another dozen shock troops. And these were guys that they were state troopers, but they were completely dressed like ready for battle, bringing in like the clubs and bringing in the zip ties. Jeez. And they had reflective vests on, like completely different outfits. They had obviously staged off of the location and were ready at a moment's notice to come in and crack down.
They had a drone.
Probably had more than one. Wouldn't surprise me. You weren't there, right?
No, but I went to other events after that.
Right. Yeah, they always had a drone at the ones that I was at. Yeah. So they come in and they threaten even harder. Now, just to go back a little bit, when the protests, I guess, vigilists, when the people attending the candlelight vigil had arrived, they were immediately threatened by the officers on the scene and told, you can't have your candlelight vigil because it would be standing still. And due to the new city ordinance, or the new town ordinance that was passed, by the way, one of the town's selectmen is the brother of Chris Sununu, who is the governor of the state. Just by total coincidence.
Yeah, there's no conflict of interest.
Yeah,
there.
no nepotism there or anything. Favoritism. And so they passed this clearly, blatantly unconstitutional ordinance against so-called picketing. Now, I don't have the exact text in front of me right here, but it's actually text that had been passed and found as unconstitutional in other cities elsewhere, as I understand it. But they went ahead and did it anyway.
Of course they did.
You know, they're going to get away with it for a long time until somebody finally challenges it in court over however many years. And now it's been a year and a half since this actually happened. And so they said, oh, nope, you can't stay here. You're picketing if you stay here. So you need to keep moving. You need to have a little parade. You need to march.
Right.
You need if you're going to stay in this neighborhood, you got to walk around, is what they were told. And so, not wanting to get a ticket, the folks that were on the scene, and there were about nine people, 10, I believe, in total. I don't know. Is Skyler counted as one of the Newfield's 9?
I guess so.
Maybe he's one of the 9. Anyway, 9 or 10 folks, they start walking around the neighborhood. And then when they're walking back by, they at one point, one of the cops tells them, they ask him, hey, can we go up to the general store? Now, to get to the general store from the governor's house, there's a little footpath that goes up on the side of his house. And then you just walk down that footpath, and then behind, a little ways behind his house, you get to the local town general store. It's a small town. And so the officer tells them, yeah, you can go to the general store. And so as they're walking up the path to the general store, another cop shouts at them and tells them to stop and that they're going to get tickets because now they've been engaging in so-called picketing.
They're dirtbags.
Yeah. And while they're ticketing them, they arrest Skyler for so-called disorderly conduct and criminal trespass as well. And their claim is they had already ticketed Skyler earlier in the night, told him to leave, and because he hadn't left, then it's criminal trespass. So that's why he was in court today.
From public property?
Yeah, that's right. Well, he stepped off the footpath, supposedly then into the yard.
In an unmarked area?
Yeah, with there's no trespass signs around or anything like that.
Who was the complaining party besides the cops?
Apparently the bitch that lives next door. And we'll get into it here in what happened in the trial today. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds.
They would have taken a jury trial.
Not always. In New Hampshire, you have the ability to do what they call a de novo trial, and that means in Latin from the beginning. And that allows you to get a second crack, basically, at a trial. So if you're ever facing a misdemeanor Class A in New Hampshire, go ahead and take the bench trial. And then if you get convicted at bench trial, you can then appeal de novo.
Okay.
And then it starts all over. The conviction is basically, I don't know if you want to call it nullified, but it's essentially going to be replaced by whatever happens in front of the jury.
Right.
So they start the case all over. They have to call all their witnesses again, which you've already seen, right? So you've already been through the trial. You already know what
gives you kind of an
witnesses.
advantage.
Yeah, it gives you a little head start. It gives kind of lets
you know
what
the state strategy.
Exactly. And then you just do it in front of a jury, and hopefully you'll have better results. And of course, in New Hampshire, it is legal to talk about jury nullification in court, unlike most places where they'll try to shut you down. So I don't know. We'll see if this was a Class A or Class B. But regardless, they came after him for basically being outside of the governor's house. And you asked before we went to the break, Joe, who was the victim in this case?
The neighbor.
They brought the same whiny bitch neighbor out from there were 9 people ticketed at this event. Skyler was the only guy arrested. So we've actually already seen like 8 of the 9 people go to trial for this. By the way, all 8 of them found not guilty on the picketing charge.
Good.
Now, of course,
Surprise.
The judge in the case never said why she found them not guilty. So we don't know if the judge thinks that the ordinance is unconstitutional or just that the people didn't violate the wording of the ordinance. So we have no idea why they found them not guilty, but since they're not guilty, you don't get to appeal it, and so then the Supreme Court doesn't get to look at it.
Very handy.
And the ordinance stays in place. So this is the guy that got arrested of this crew. So we've already been in there. We've already seen this court in operation. We've basically seen this trial. In fact, it seemed shorter than the previous trials. They called the same witnesses. The defense didn't put on any kind of case because the argument from his attorney, who's a Free Stater, by the way, Dan Hines, did, I thought, a decent job in court today. But the argument from the attorney basically came down to, look, the state didn't prove its case. There's certain elements of all of these so-called crimes that need to be proven by the state, and it failed to prove its case, so they didn't need to call any witnesses.
Well, one thing that really bugged me is that you got the neighbor Karen, she was like, "Oh, I heard people arguing." But, like, you know, what if the cops are already giving you a ticket or about to arrest you? Yeah, you're going to be heated. You're going to be like, no, I don't want to, this is not happening. This is wrong, and you're going to be all heated. And that's maybe what she heard, because we didn't really hear the timeline of those events.
She didn't know.
So she can't be complaining about noise and arguments because the cops are, harassing and destroying someone's livelihood or taking away their freedom. They can't use that as her as a complaining party for disorderly conduct.
And she's totally in on this, by the way, in my opinion.
I was going to ask that next. I was like, is this lady, how many protests happened at that place for
Dozens.
one? Probably constantly. Yeah. I wonder if it's just completely set up with her, like, hey, Karen, can you...
She's the next door neighbor to Chris Sununu.
She's got to be like a part of the she's playing a role.
He went over to her. What happened was, and this is total speculation, but it makes complete sense, right? He went over to her and said, hey, look, Karen, or whatever her name was. It's something like that.
It's Karen now.
It's something like that.
Forever.
Hey, why don't you just call in the police whenever these guys show up?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what what favor he did for her. I don't know, because the reason why is Chris Sununu doesn't want to be on the stand.
Right. Can't let him.
Yeah, right. And she could just be a kiss-ass Jenner and just do it because
she likes him.
Yeah.
Or she gets to go swimming in his pool in the summer.
Maybe she's into him. Maybe they have a thing together. I don't know.
Maybe. He was at home working a lot.
Yeah, and
it's strange.
He sent his wife away at one point with the kids.
They have a path between their homes that they can walk to and from between each other.
So that she was the one who was complaining, but she couldn't, as Dan Hines, the attorney, the defense attorney, pointed out, she was not able to identify who was making the noise. She admitted that she just heard some noise. So she didn't know that it was Skylar specifically who was the one that was being noisy. And Hines claims that in order for the state to get a conviction on, I believe it was the disorderly, that they have to have someone who's not a cop identify the person who's the problem.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if that's true. I have not checked the statute, but Dan Hines tends to be a pretty good defense attorney, so I presume he's done his research there. And so it'll be interesting to see how this case shapes up as far as whether or not this judge is going to convict him. The good news is she did say she was going to take it under advisement, and normally that means that at least one of the charges is probably going to be a not guilty. The obvious one is picketing, considering she hasn't convicted a single person yet of picketing. I suspect she's going to continue in that means.
Possibly.
She doesn't want to cause a problem with the state, right?
No.
She doesn't want that to get
she doesn't want it to be overturned.
Yep.
There's more coming up here in moments. We'll continue. If you want to share your thoughts, you can join us, 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. A third evacuation of civilians is underway in the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariopol in a bid to save hundreds of people thought to be trapped in the maze-like tunnels under the city's steel plant. The United Nations Secretary General said he could give no other details until the operation was complete. Heavy fighting has been raging at the steel plant as Russian forces seek to take the remaining part of the city still in Ukrainian hands and complete the capture of the strategically vital port. Meanwhile, more than €6 billion has been raised for Ukraine at an international donors conference in the Polish capital, Warsaw. The event, co-hosted by the Prime Ministers of Poland and Sweden, was attended by top EU leaders and business representatives. Our Europe correspondent Rosie Burchard has more.
Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said the $6.5 billion raised exceeded expectations. The United Nations estimates that almost 13 million people have either fled Ukraine or been internally displaced since Russia invaded in late February. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, who co-hosted Thursday's pledging session, used the event to send a political message to other European Union leaders, arguing that Ukraine, which has long held ambitions of joining the bloc, should be granted candidate status as soon as possible.
In the US, a number of Republican state governors are speaking up in favour of abortion rights. It comes after a leaked Supreme Court draft opinion suggested justices are preparing to overturn Roe v. Wade that provides a constitutional right to abortion. Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
Governor Charlie Baker of Massachusetts said if the Supreme Court does overturn Roe v. Wade, it would be a massive setback for women in states without laws protecting abortion access and reproductive health services. Governor Phil Scott of Vermont said he supported an amendment to his state's constitution that would ensure a right to abortion. And Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire said that these health services for women would remain safe and legal under his leadership. Caroline Malone, Washington.
France's president is days out from an inauguration that's likely to include big promises to combat climate change. But France has struggled to meet all its commitments so far, and it's still using the Earth's ecological resources faster than they can be replenished. From Paris, Ryan Thompson has more.
Emmanuel Macron is promising to double down on climate goals when his second term begins this weekend, but the president will already be over budget when it comes to using natural resources, according to the World Wildlife Fund. Thursday marks the so-called Day of Overshoot for France, meaning that the country has used more resources than the ecosystem can produce.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about courtroom shenanigans. There's another story here that a gentleman in the chat room on YouTube reminded me about. There was another person who was scheduled to go on trial today.
Who?
A gentleman named Brian. I didn't recall meeting him, but apparently we had met at one of the protests. There's been, as I said to him, there's so many different protests. But nice guy. He had gotten dressed up in a suit and tie and was ready to go to trial. Was going to take it himself. Didn't have an attorney. And he was out there bright and early, ready. 8 a.m. start time for his trial supposedly, and then he wasn't on the docket. And he's got the official notice from the court in his hand saying he's got trial today at 8 a.m. And so, of course, he goes up to the clerk's window and says, what's going on here? I'm here for trial. Took my day off or whatever. Why am I not going on trial? And I thought maybe they silently dropped the ticket because it was, one of these picketing tickets. So he was the last guy to go for just a picketing ticket. He actually wasn't in the 9 people that was arrested. He was arrested on a later date for so-called picketing. So he was a later arrest of picketing in front of the governor's house. And no, they hadn't dropped it. What happened was the prosecutor had filed a motion to continue, and they had sent it to an old address of his. So he had no idea, did not receive notice of this, even though he had updated the court with his new address. So the court clerk had his address. So he asked him, how is it that this went to my old address when I updated the address?
Well, I know how that is. They did it to me too. When I got arrested on my birthday, I did a change of address at the clerk's window.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was coming in the mail. And I'm like, what is going on here? I'm not getting charged with anything right now, which is great. But then I had to go back and do a change of address. And after I went a third time for whatever reason, and some lady was arguing at the window about her change of address, which I gave her the form, and they didn't like that I gave her the form directly. And then I was like, they were asking me, what do I need here? And I was like, well, first I want to check if my change of address is still correct. And sure enough, it was. But I almost
so
to
how
make
come
sure
you weren't getting the notices?
I don't know. They didn't do my change of address. Like
so
they said
put
they
it
would.
in, but they didn't actually put it in the system?
Here's the thing, guys. Get copies.
You got to.
I didn't get a copy when I was arrested that day. And
you got to get a copy of everything you file. Yeah, and it needs to be stamped. Whenever you file something at court, this is why I always go down physically. If I'm in the area of a court, I'll always go down there and hand them whatever it is I need to file, and then I ask them, give me a stamped copy of it so I know that y'all got this. That way you can't say, oh, we didn't get a filing.
Right.
Because they do that crap.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, they told the guy, oh, well, yeah, you did put the change of address in with us, but you didn't put it in with the prosecutor. So the prosecutor was the one who sent him the copy of, because whenever you file something and whenever you file a motion in court, you have to file one with the other party and one with the court. And so who knew that when you change your address, you have to tell the person who's the prosecutor? I would have figured, and so did Brian, that, you put in a notice with the court, done deal.
You thought they were on the same team, right?
Yeah, the prosecutor's there every day.
I know.
He is the court as well.
Right.
Right.
They're literally paid by the same agency. So that's why he didn't get notice that his trial was postponed. So we're going to have to go back to Brentwood. I don't know how many times I've been out to this damn courthouse at this point, because we've been to every single trial. So, Joe, was there other aspects of this trial that you thought we should mention as far as the... I guess we didn't really get into the questioning of the witnesses.
Not so much. I mean, I liked how the Savage's lawyer was kept on asking, what's your definition of picketing? And he kept on getting objected.
Well, the first agent that was on the stand, the first state police agent, was able to answer the question for a little while before finally the state attorney objected and said, oh, well, this calls for a legal conclusion. And so then the judge jumped in and protected the witness from answering any more questions about what the individual, the state trooper, thought picketing was. Because he was, just going off. He didn't know what the hell picketing was. He's like, oh, well, there's what the ordinance says, and then there's my interpretation of it. And then so finally it got stopped. And then he asked the same question of every other witness.
And that was good for him to do that, because I don't think they were trying to get legal determinations. They're trying to see what the cops are acting on when it comes to picketing. So you have to know what the legal definitions are for you to act on anything when you go and try to charge them with something. You have to have understanding. You can't just I think picketing is this.
I think that Dan Hines missed an opportunity with this, and it may be because he's an officer of the court and he can only push the ball so far. The judge shut him down from asking this question of any other witness. And it's one of those relevant and interesting questions. And they use the excuse of, oh, well, you can't ask for a legal conclusion from someone who's not a legal scholar. Okay, but every time a cop makes an arrest, aren't they coming to a legal conclusion that the statute is being broken? Aren't they doing it every single time they put handcuffs on somebody? Now, he can't ask that question, but if he's not allowed to ask, what's your definition of picketing, then maybe he could rephrase it as, well, why did you arrest this person for picketing? And then that would have to they would have to then explain whatever their rationale is, whatever was going through their mind. And in that process, they would likely answer the question of, well, he was picketing because he was blah, blah, blah. But then that wouldn't be a question. I don't think that phraseology of the question would be objectionable.
The one other thing too that was that happened is that the arresting officer wasn't there. Apparently, he fled the country.
Yeah, very interesting.
I'm not even joking.
Really?
Well, I don't know.
He's on vacation or something.
Doesn't matter.
He's in Europe.
This is the whole case right here. The arresting officer should be there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know why you can't just motion to dismiss a case if the arresting officer isn't present.
For real,
the most relevant witness isn't here.
Yeah.
Case dismissed. So, maybe...
well, it's different if he's a cop.
Yeah. And they just went with... there was one of the officers pointed out during her testimony that I believe it was the arresting officer, refused to identify himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a policy violation. And that's what I was saying. I titled my video, Cop Rats on Another Cop. And that's exactly what she did. She threw another cop under the bus. He failed to identify it. She just admitted that he broke policy and can be reprimanded for it.
No, that's it. It's only a reprimand. Shame.
Well, it puts a file on their record, and it builds up if they keep doing it.
Though?
It does, yeah.
But does it actually have any effect? Not really.
Maybe. I don't know.
These cops have to rape somebody to get taken off the force.
No, I don't think that's always true.
Yeah, they get away with rape.
They rape lots of people and don't get knocked off the force.
Yeah, but usually if they get fired from their job, it's almost always some sort of sexual thing.
True. But then they just end up the smoke clears.
And then they get rehired somewhere else.
They get rehired somewhere else.
That just
10
usually
miles down the road.
That usually sounds like a political angle. While the sexual stuff is the reason why they get kicked off. It's political angles. Yeah.
So that was the situation today. Otherwise, we'll find out. I asked Skylar to reach out to me when the order comes down from the judge as far as what the verdict is. So we'll definitely keep you updated on that. Joe, you've already posted your video. This was you couldn't live stream because the internet was crappy in the courthouse, but you did record video. I've also got video. I'm holding off on that just until I get the verdict because I always like to put it usually comes relatively quickly. So,
right.
So I'll put the final version together.
Yeah, I'll do an update on that too. But I did post it today.
Yeah, follow Joe's channel. It's Breaking Breaking the Flaw. You can find him on Odyssey. You can go to our Odyssey channel over at video.freetalklive.com and then just type in the search box Breaking the Flaw, and he'll come up there. And so if you want to see the action from the courtroom today, you can. My biggest disappointment today was that almost no one was there. It was me, you, and Bill Domenico that came out to this.
Yeah, I think the best part of today was we didn't stand.
Oh, of course not.
And I didn't take my hat off.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Well, the courtroom bailiff chews gum in that.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. He's like a cow.
I sent you a video of that guy.
Oh, that's right.
Away.
That's right. Chewing his gum.
Yeah.
Contempt
Mouth
of court.
open and everything. Like, he'll just...
It was pathetic.
There's more coming up here. You can join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We got video of a state rep losing her mind outside of a abortion protest today. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here. You can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can, of course, take control of the airwaves here. You can also join us online. We have a social media platform. It is for free. You can go over there and use it, and it is not run by some big tech mega corporation, so you will not be censored for having an opinion that somebody doesn't like. In fact, we've already had people reporting one of the accounts on the server for his, I would say, right-wing kind of leaning opinions. I wouldn't say the guy's a libertarian, but again, we don't require you to be a libertarian to join the server. He joined the server because he felt like it was a place where he wasn't going to be molested by the administrators, and indeed, we have rejected the people that have been complaining about him. And by the way, they're not coming from our server. It's people complaining from other Mastodon servers, because all the Mastodons, the Mastodons are all federated together, and I didn't realize this. I wish there was a way to turn it off, because honestly, I don't care what people on other servers think about our content. I don't even want to be bothered by it, but it is kind of entertaining to read the whining from the people, because there's nothing they can do about it except for complain, because we're not going to do anything. Social.freetalklive.com. Unless you're a spammer, in that case, you're not welcome. And that's why we did turn on the sign-up approval process. So it used to be just anybody that signed up was in and you could instantly post. Now it does have to go through an administrator, and you do have to write something about why you're joining the server, and that has kept the spammers completely out. Like we have managed, I believe, to stop completely the spam problem. So if you haven't been to social.freetalklive.com, or if you went and you saw some spam and you thought, this isn't worth my time, I think you're going to have a different experience now, so check it out at social.freetalklive.com. So, of course, the big news this week, which we certainly already covered in great detail, is the potential, the likely, at this point, overturning of Roe versus Wade. And you guys weren't here when we talked about that, so certainly would love to get your opinions on it. But for those of you just tuning in, maybe you didn't hear the news, you've been under a rock this week. There was a leaked draft memo, or a draft version of what is going to be a majority opinion. So that suggests that the Supreme Court has already voted on this question of overturning Roe versus Wade. And then the majority of the Supreme Court agreed Roe versus Wade should be overturned. As usual, what happens is there's a majority opinion, a minority opinion written by one of the so-called justices. And so this was the majority opinion written by whichever one it was, Alito or something like that. And that's what came out. It's over 90 pages in length, so, I don't know how much it's going to change between now and when it actually is officially released, but this was a leak. It came out earlier this week, and people have been freaking out.
Losing it.
Ever since.
It's just a clump of words.
So
you got it.
I caught up.
So that happened, and instantly, protesters were in the streets, both sides. People on the side of abortion or the right to choose were out in front of the Supreme Court, and people against the right to choose, against abortion, were out in front of the Supreme Court. The protesters went out to state capitals. They went out right here in Keene, apparently. Aria came to the show last night. She was driving in. She saw what she estimated was 40 people in downtown Keene at the Central Square, which is a large number for Central Square. That's a pretty big protest, 40 people, especially with less than 24 hours notice.
Against, what was
pro-abortion.
Pro-abortion.
Yeah, and she said there was one counter-protester that was out there as well. So you got people protesting, you got counter-protesters, and, of course, the conservatives are grave dancing like, they've defeated the liberals. I've even seen people say online that they think that now the Supreme Court's going to overturn all the gun laws. And it's like, yeah, I don't see any reason to believe that that's going to happen. The liberals now in Congress are talking about passing a law. They're going to put it up next week to enshrine a right to abortion all across the United States. So this thing ain't over yet. I mean, this thing is just heating up.
It's just stupid.
Why do you say that?
Because it's such everything's on a spectrum. Okay, every topic is on a spectrum, and you have so many people with so many different opinions. Nobody's really on everybody else's side, even when they think they are on everybody else's side. It's a spectrum, and especially this topic. I mean, there's hardcore gun dudes out there that think AR-15 should be banned because they don't have any wood on them.
Oh,
you know,
my
they're
God.
they're not real guns. Those are plastic. You know,
with his NRA hat on.
Yeah, with his NRA. Yeah, they're FUDs. We call them FUDs, right? So, but this is the same way. There's a huge spectrum, and I think especially on this topic, it's just so vast that there's so many different opinions on it, and everybody thinks that they're on the side of the opinion, that everybody else has, and they're just not. You know, the real message here is that with Roe v. Wade going away, it becomes a states' rights issue, which it always should have been in the first place. Probably.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, I mean, states' rights are more important than anything. That said, from a moral and ethical standpoint, not religious whatsoever, and not screeching pink-haired 700-pound communist in the street. I mean, Ron Paul was talking about doing it. Ron Paul's not just a legendary congressman that most of us love.
He's a doctor.
He's also a doctor, and he's not just a doctor. He's an OBGYN.
That's right.
He's delivered thousands of babies, and he's a Christian.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't necessarily go into religious territory with his political beliefs, and he's always been good about not doing that. And the one thing he said about abortion was doing it when he was just doing his residency. He's a brand new doctor. He's just doing his residency, and he saw an abortion performed, and they aborted a baby that he said it was crying and struggling, and they threw it in a pan and basically walked away until it stopped crying and struggling. So I don't know if people realize that sometimes when abortions are performed, a birth is given and the thing is alive. It's no longer a clump of cells. It's a living person at this point. So at what point is it murder? Is endangering a living thing to the point if it is, causing something to become alive by retrieving it from its safe haven and then dumping it, thereby killing it.
Without reaching into the realm of murder, I think it's still unethical that you've taken a responsibility into your life and you shouldn't just be, resolving this with some little surgery. No, you performed an act that caused you to get pregnant. You're carrying, I think it's a child. Maybe other people don't, but you still have a this, I want to say burden. That's a horrible way to say it. You have this, this situation where you got to take care of something, if it's living or not, if you want it or not, it is there, and it has a heartbeat. It can breathe when they abort it, and you really should take responsibility.
Yeah, and I think it's just to walk away from a helpless thing that's dying is barbarism of the highest caliber.
Yeah, but how are these elites going to get their adrenochrome?
I don't think they're getting it don't they have to get adrenochrome from a living person?
That's probably why they're trying to make fourth-term abortions legal.
Okay,
Anyways,
guys. So,
yeah, sorry.
I mean, maybe all that's true. I don't want to really argue about that, but what should the government do about it? If anything?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
They should shut up and walk away from everything.
What could the market do about it then?
The market could probably come up with a limit as a spectrum of interesting ideas.
Well, it was a time where people went to churches for welfare, per se, or, needed help in whatever which way. And if someone, they economically or socially, they can't take care of a baby, well, a church certainly could set up a system where, there's plenty of people out there that want babies.
Yeah, and, somebody we know is going through some CPS stuff right now. And
Child Protective Services.
Yeah, or whatever they call them here. DCYF. Scumbags.
Yep.
Basically, a position that was put forward by this victim, this family of victims, was that basically the Handmaid's Tale is coming true. But it's usually the left-wingers who are accusing the right-wingers of trying to create a Handmaid's Tale reality, when in fact what's happening is you have left-wing city folk who don't have any idea what country culture is like, coming up here to the country and declaring the lives of these country people to be unfit for parenthood, taking their children and putting them up for adoption, and the kids end up in a city family.
Just to clarify, The Handmaid's Tale is a television show?
Now it was a movie
book by Margaret Atwood, and
it's about
Yeah, and
what's it about?
It's about a religious cult that seems very right-wing and conservative, and they take over the United States government, and then they basically press all childbearing women into indentured servitude, sex slavery, where they are required, because society's dying, because there's all of the women are barren. But so they have all the men in society who are a part of this religious cult be the ones to sire children with these slaves that each family has taken into their house.
Okay.
So basically, they're taking babies from people.
But now I was going to reach into this article here, but they're now using algorithms to determine if the state should take kids from their parents.
Let's talk about that coming up. Plus, news from the COVID-19 revealing data coming out from Pfizer that's relating to having children and taking a vaccine. How's that? What do their data actually say about that? Well, that's been revealed. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Hong Kong, I'm Richard Kimber. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian city of Mariopol. More than 400 people have been helped to safety in the last week. Sarah Walton reports.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Thursday that another humanitarian ceasefire was in place in Mariupol after 2 previous operations. He said the evacuation is being led by the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross, but that no further information would be released until the operation was complete. The ceasefires come after Guterres met with both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine last week to negotiate safe corridors for civilians trying to flee the fighting. The Secretary-General said the UN believes there are still civilians trapped at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and that negotiations will continue with Ukrainian and Russian forces about the establishment of future ceasefires and for access for humanitarian aid. Sarah Walton, New York.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter. The world's richest man is on the cusp of buying the social media platform for $44 billion. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
According to a new SEC filing, Elon Musk has secured around $5.2 billion in equity commitments from 18 investors, plus a rollover of nearly 35 million Twitter shares from one large investor. The financing is another indication that the Tesla and SpaceX CEO is in a strong position to follow through on his bid to buy Twitter and make it a private company pending regulatory approval. Musk says he intends to better protect free speech on Twitter, which has raised concerns from some about the type of content moderation, or lack thereof, he is planning. According to the network CNBC, Musk is also planning to become Twitter's interim CEO when the deal closes.
And nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization. That's almost 3 times more than the number officially recorded. Benji Hire reports.
The WHO's excess mortality figures reflect people who died from COVID-19, as well as those who died indirectly due to the outbreak, such as those who couldn't access treatment for other conditions when healthcare systems were overwhelmed. But the numbers are also far higher than the official tally, claims the health agency, because of coronavirus deaths that were missed or undercounted in many countries. The World Health Organization says 70% of excess deaths were concentrated in just 10 nations, including India, Indonesia, Russia, Brazil, and the United States, which is close to reaching 1 million recorded COVID deaths. The Indian government has disputed the WHO's data estimates, calling them questionable. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We've made it to the end of the week, so today we're going to hear from Benedict Cumberbatch, star of the latest Marvel film, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The trailer alone is quite something.
I did what I had to do.
You opened the doorway between universes. We don't know who or what will walk through it.
You might say it is a marvel that Marvel has become such a significant player on the big screen, giving characters that, in the case of Doctor Strange, first featured in comics back in 1963, an entirely new lease on life. So how do the stars of these films keep the plot lines under wraps, given the enormous public speculation about them? Well, it turns out that sometimes even Benedict Cumberbatch isn't quite sure what to expect when he first sees the film.
I want the fans to have the same experience that I do when I watch one of these films, which I have done until I started playing Strange, and then I'm sort of a participant. But even so, I'm sitting in my own audience going, oh my goodness, I had no idea that it would be realised like that as far as the visual effects go, the environment, or whatever it is I'm battling against or working with. And I want to sit there and have that thrill. I don't mind playing that game for those who share that, and I know a lot of people want a bit more. I mean, my goodness, that's quite an eventful trailer. So I think people have had a lot of fun playing around with theories.
They certainly have. A social media frenzy, boosted of course by the studios themselves, is now critical in determining a film's financial success. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian capital of Mariopol. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter, and the World Health Organization says that nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19. That's almost 3 times more than the official number recorded. And that's the latest feature story news. Richard Kimber.
In a survey, nearly 100% of boys ages 12 to 15 report that they have sex all the time and are definitely not virgins. Teens say they've gone all the way on numerous occasions, including vaginal sex, oral sex, and regular sex orgies.
Previous studies suggested that most boys lose their virginity at 16 or 17. But when we gathered 13-year-olds in a room and asked them if they'd had sex, they not only said yes, but they also were clear that sex was no big deal for them, that they weren't nervous before having it, and that when they do have sex, they do it for hours at a time.
And you discovered that these young teenagers have sex with nearly every attractive woman they know, including their babysitters, teachers, and even Hollywood celebrities.
10% of boys in junior high school say they received a blowjob from Katy Perry while they were on vacation in Los Angeles.
And what about teenage girls? Did your study find out anything new about their sexual habits?
We didn't talk to any teenage girls. The boys we surveyed told us not to because they'd probably just lie and deny it.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You're invited. If you want to join us, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt, and Joa.
We were just getting into the issue of the Roe versus Wade overturning thing. That started a conversation that led to a discussion about what we're going to get into here, which is Joe, you've got a story.
Yes.
About algorithmic decision making when it comes to stealing kids from people. Because we ended up talking about our friend Jay Noon, who is former co-host, who he's being targeted by what they call them, the DCYF here in New Hampshire, Department of Children, Youth, Families, or something like that.
Division of Youth and Family.
Right.
They want to divide children and families.
That's their job.
And so you've got a story, Joe, about how this isn't even a human-made decision now, apparently. There's software for this.
Yeah, according to the freethoughtproject.com, and I already said the title, algorithms being used to determine if the state should take kids from their parents. And they give their own opinion. You can imagine what that's like. But I'll read the AP report. So from Los Angeles to Colorado and throughout Oregon, as child welfare agencies use or consider tools similar to the one in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, an Associated Press review has identified a number of concerns about the technology, including questions about its reliability and its potential to harden racial disparity in the child welfare system. Related issues have already torpedoed some jurisdictions' plans to use predictive models, such as the tool notably dropped by the state of Illinois. According to the new research from a Carnegie...
Notably dropped, meaning that there was some controversy, I presume, in Illinois. Stopped using this?
I guess so here.
Okay.
And according to the new research from a Carnegie Mellon University team obtained exclusively by AP, Allegheny's algorithm in its first years of operation showed a pattern of flagging a disproportionate I can't say the word. Disproportionate number of black children for mandatory neglect investigation when compared with white children. The independent researchers who received data from the county also found that the social workers disagreed with the risk scores the algorithm produced about 1/3 of the time. So
how much you want to bet that this algorithm takes into large factor, the income levels of the people?
Yeah, it's rich people versus poor people. They're taking poor people's babies and giving them to rich people.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the Handmaid's Tale thing again. That's just taking average people's kids away and giving them to rich, affluent, powerful types.
And I think this is a desperate move for like DCYF and whatever other name agencies they call themselves.
You mean using a software?
Yeah, using software, because you hear on the news in New Hampshire, there's DCYF is understaffed. Well, no, they're not. They're
not
overstaffed by one.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so if they can't fill these positions because nobody wants to steal children from families.
Great.
Yeah, I know. Amazing. That'd be great. But because they can't fill these positions, now they got to find other tools like algorithms and that sort of thing.
Well, the algorithm makes it convenient, right? Because then you don't get to blame anyone. Then it's just, hey, I was just doing what the computer told me to do. I didn't talk to this family.
Right.
We don't know why this computer said we need to take their kids.
And I don't think DCYF people have qualified immunity.
No, they don't.
Really?
Yeah.
They do not. They don't take an oath of office.
Huh.
So it could be presumed that it would be a lot harder to sue an algorithm.
It sure would.
Than to sue a meat puppet in a Corolla that pulls up onto your property and wants to make off with your kids.
I think this is another reason why people should get off social media.
What do you mean?
Well, if they're using algorithms, they're not flying a drone over your house. They're looking into your social media.
That's true. Yeah, they're ingesting your data into a system.
They may also be flying a drone over your house.
That's
I know, but that's not algorithms unless the AI has gone totally out of control.
Give it 5 years.
So what they're saying in this story is this was run out of Illinois due to it being revealed and whatever controversy came up as a result of the fact that people found out that they were using this, but yet other states are adopting it. It's spreading.
Yes. They're using all these excuses. It's a kind of a long article, so to kind of like go through all this and fine tune it. But generally, what they were doing is they're running an algorithm, but even the algorithm wasn't that great. So like a third of these cases that were coming up, they were even DCYF was rejecting them.
Wow.
So. But, I can imagine how many new cases they got of this that they would never have discovered without this, And who knows? Maybe the kids play with Nerf guns and water bombs, and the next thing you know, Nerf gun and bombs is showing up on their algorithm.
Yep.
You know, it's just it's ridiculous.
It's a legitimate concern, and it is definitely a consistent push of government to use more robots, to use more automation, to use more algorithmic decision making, and that sort of thing. And it is not a good trend.
See, they'll use the excuse like, "Oh, we got robot cops now. We don't have to ever worry about cops ever getting killed on duty." So there's gonna be robot cops everywhere.
They're working on it.
Yeah,
They've already got the dogs. They got the robot dogs.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're freakish.
They used them in Hawaii. There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, China, robot dogs, China." It already happened in Hawaii like a year or two ago.
What they do in Hawaii?
They were using them for the exact same purpose, which was to use them for COVID-19 enforcement. They had this dog going around, and the claim was, "Oh, we can't send our officers out there. It's too dangerous. So we just have this dog with a loudspeaker on it, and then an operator behind the scenes, barking orders at people to go inside. You can't be out right now." The exact same thing they're using them for in China, in Shanghai today.
Someone should hack them so these robot dogs attack their owners.
That'd be awesome. I mean, it is a wireless signal that's going to them.
Right.
How hard could it be?
So, yeah, it's probably easier than you think.
Even better, could they be hacked and used as Bitcoin miners?
Oh, I like this idea.
Mobile Bitcoin. And instead of going around barking orders at people, they go around promoting cryptocurrency over the loudspeaker.
Yeah, I like this idea.
So that's that story. And then in other news related to young people, and in this case, children and babies, you've got the Pfizer data that they were trying to hold back for 70 years or whatever. Remember they were saying they weren't going to reveal it until late in this century, and then some court decided that, no, you have to reveal it now. And so they've been coming out with some chunk of data every month, so they're not doing it all in one fell swoop. They're doing, I don't know, it's like a 10,000 or 100,000 pages. It's a lot every single month that's coming out. So it's a lot for whoever it is that's doing this.
Something like
50,000
pages a month.
Why can't they just dump a file? They don't have to go through the whole thing before they dump it.
Well, I don't know. It was what the judge ordered, so it's going to take them like most of a year to come out with all the data. But it's a lot of data every month that's coming out. And according to a excerpt here at Twitter account Frank Capone, at Frank_Cap1_BOE, he's got some excerpts from a PDF that are ostensibly from this Pfizer paperwork, 50,000 pages of it. And here they say in section 4.6, there are no or limited amount of data from the use of COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, and then a bunch of letters and numbers identifying the vaccine. Animal reproductive toxicity studies have not been completed. This mRNA vaccine, is not recommended during pregnancy. Further, with regard to breastfeeding, they say it is unknown whether the vaccine is excreted in human milk, and a risk to newborn/infants cannot be excluded. The mRNA vaccine for COVID-19 should not be used during breastfeeding. Well, guess what? People have already been taking this vaccine while breastfeeding, while pregnant, and we've already seen examples of people having problems, people having complications.
Absolutely,
women having complications.
I can't shed a tear over that. I can't bring myself to be sad about that.
Yeah, you did this to your child.
You did it to yourself. You did it to your kids. I can't be sad about that one, but I'm happy for everybody, actually.
And according to the Children's Health Defense, this is a bombshell. So,
you got more?
Yeah, there's more info on this.
All right, we'll get into it. Coming up here, the number 603-283-6160. You want to weigh in? You're welcome to join us. 603-283-6160. You can take control of the airwaves here. This is Free Talk Live.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's FFF at fff.org.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us at 603-283-6160. Whether you want to weigh in on the situation with DCYF stealing people's children to give them to richer people, because that seems to be the plot, seems to be what's going on. Or you want to comment on the latest Pfizer vaccine revelations that, of course, a lot of people aren't surprised by. Those of who have been paying attention, the conspiracy theorists on this were completely correct. And now Pfizer's own data is bearing that out. They've released another 50,000 pages, of course, so there's a lot in there for whoever it is that can read this stuff to actually go through. But initial revealings are, well, again, not a big surprise. Turns out Pfizer is saying, right in their own paperwork, we don't recommend you use the mRNA vaccine while you're pregnant or while you're breastfeeding. But how many thousands of Americans, tens of thousands of pregnant women and breastfeeding women did just that? Because
And
the doctor told them to.
Not that it matters, because they made themselves free from prosecution on this anyway, right?
Oh, yeah. All vaccine manufacturers are completely immune from any kind of lawsuits. So, yeah.
How that didn't, when that news came out, that should have thrown all kinds of red flags for anybody who would go ahead and get that DNA.
They're just that, they were that scared, Matt. They were so afraid. They would do anything anyone told them to do.
Well, hey, the number one selling product of all time was the shot, was the vaccine.
Really? Where did you get that from?
I just know. Moderna, I've heard it several times, but Moderna.
Most people didn't even pay for it, right? It was just the government that paid for it.
Well, that still makes it best selling.
Yeah. But they made $22 billion last year. Wow. Moderna.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to share a little bit more information, Joe, I think, from this Pfizer.
So, the Child's Health Defense was calling it a bombshell. And they continue to say, or the general counsel, Mary Holland, says, at least now we know why the FDA and Pfizer wanted to keep this data under wraps for 75 years. Mm-hmm. These findings should be put an immediate end to the Pfizer COVID vaccines. The potential for serious harm is clear, and those injuries by the vaccines are prohibited from suing Pfizer for damages. That's what we're saying.
Yep.
But while it's important, and this is not a quote, but while it's important to point out that the correlation does not equal causation, similar adverse events have flooded the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's CDC vaccine adverse event reporting system.
VAERS, which is what we heard a lot about in recent months, where people are voluntarily reporting, people in healthcare, like nurses or whatever, they're reporting situations with people having adverse reactions to the vaccine, or at least what they presume to be, because again, correlation is not causation, but it sure is interesting that a lot of people have been having blood clots, more so than normal.
But, we were told by officials not to be concerned with this data if we compared it to previous data. The recommendations to ignore it becomes utterly asinine. Since the emergency use authorization of the COVID jabs in December of 2020, there have been 150% more reported adverse events for a single vaccine than
ever, I think. Right?
Than they ever been reported, Yep.
It's pretty crazy stuff. If you want to weigh in, you're welcome to join us. Let's talk to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. You can also bring up anything you want. That's what Sarah always does.
That's what she's going to do right now.
So go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, I wanted to bring up that the last time we had the red light cameras here, half the people here, they just tore up the ticket and just ignored it, and they just told. I know, but where else in this whole world? That you just tear up a city citation and put in the garbage and just think that it doesn't exist, and so I'm just curious what's going to be the consequences to enforce these camera tickets? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, the reason why you're wondering that is because you want people to pay consequences. You said good earlier in response to what Joe has said, or you acknowledged it in a positive way, but I don't think you really understood what he was saying. Joey, you were saying it was a good thing that people tore these tickets up.
Yeah, let me just break down a moral thing to you. Do you think it's okay that your neighbor watches every moment of your life when you leave and come to your house, and maybe you just you stepped in the road just too long, and now they call the authorities to get you a ticket, and now you're going to get a jaywalking charge? You think that's okay? You get a jaywalking charge every other day when you leave your house?
Well, think about the difference between like a pedestrian making a mistake. If they get hit by a car, they're the one that get killed. If a car makes a mistake, they go out and kill somebody else. They kill the pedestrian and they live.
Okay, I guess we're talking apples and oranges here.
She didn't answer your question.
No, she isn't, because you're bringing up like a car accident with death. I'm talking about like a victimless crime, like that they call crimes, like running a red light or something. But you jaywalking is the same thing. But like, imagine someone being right outside your house and doing this every day to you. This is like, or a private company or your neighbor. Like these.
The thing about it is that why do you say it's a victimless crime? There's plenty of victims caused by red light violators and speeders.
Who is? Okay, tell me who the victim is.
Well, there was a Chavez lady, and one of the brothers got killed.
No.
Coming down the street. Why are you making things up?
No, because I guarantee you they didn't get
cheaters.
charged for a red light cam when they killed somebody, okay? They got charged for killing somebody. If you were to drive through a red light cam, you didn't hit anybody, and you get a ticket in the mail, whatever, who was the victim? Who did you hurt?
There was no victim. That's the moral of the story.
At that time, but when they do hit somebody, then it's everybody gets killed, get their neck and back broken, and wind up in the hospital.
Then the red light cams didn't matter then.
And then they're just going to get a different charge. It's going to be vehicular manslaughter.
It does not matter. Think about it.
Because the red light cam did not stop them. It did not stop them from hitting someone and killing them. So the red light cam does not matter in this scenario. Can we bring up a scenario where the red light cams do matter and there is a victim? You can't. I would love for you to try.
She believes that I'm going to try to argue her point for her here.
Okay.
She believes that the existence of red light cameras will make it so people drive more cautiously and therefore fewer accidents.
That's correct. It's more preventative. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be.
But the evidence never bared that out, Sarah. When the red light cameras existed in your city before and they were removed, one of the reasons why cities removed red light cameras is because the numbers showed that accidents actually went up, that people actually took different risks. So instead of going all the way through the intersection on a yellow, they would slam on their brakes to avoid the $200 ticket or whatever and put themselves in greater jeopardy of being rear-ended by whoever it was that was behind them.
And Sarah, let me tell you something real quick. I'm from Rhode Island, right? And in Providence, we put records requests in to see how many public officials had gone through red light cams or went through the speed cams. And guess what? They will not give us a response to that. The reason why is because
they're dropping those tickets.
Yeah, because there's no victim. And, they work with the same company. They're in bed with the same company, Redflex.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's from your state, by the way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And, I found my tricks around Redflex. Let's put it that.
So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. The good old boys are getting a pass, and everybody else is getting the ticket. Thanks for the call tonight, Sarah. There's more coming up. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, a state representative freaks out outside the State House. We got the audio from the video of this lady just losing her mind. This is Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Hong Kong, I'm Richard Kimber. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian city of Mariopol. More than 400 people have been helped to safety in the last week. Sarah Walton reports.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Thursday that another humanitarian ceasefire was in place in Mariupol after 2 previous operations. He said the evacuation is being led by the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross, but that no further information would be released until the operation was complete. The ceasefires come after Guterres met with both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine last week to negotiate safe corridors for civilians trying to flee the fighting. The Secretary-General said the UN believes there are still civilians trapped at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and that negotiations will continue with Ukrainian and Russian forces about the establishment of future ceasefires and for access for humanitarian aid. Sarah Walton, New York.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter. The world's richest man is on the cusp of buying the social media platform for $44 billion. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
According to a new SEC filing, Elon Musk has secured around $5.2 billion in equity commitments from 18 investors, plus a rollover of nearly 35 million Twitter shares from one large investor. The financing is another indication that the Tesla and SpaceX CEO is in a strong position to follow through on his bid to buy Twitter and make it a private company pending regulatory approval. Musk says he intends to better protect free speech on Twitter, which has raised concerns from some about the type of content moderation or lack thereof he is planning. According to the network CNBC, Musk is also planning to become Twitter's interim CEO when the deal closes.
And nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization. That's almost 3 times more than the number officially recorded. Benji Hire reports.
The WHO's excess mortality figures reflect people who died from COVID-19, as well as those who died indirectly due to the outbreak, such as those who couldn't access treatment for other conditions when healthcare systems were overwhelmed. But the numbers are also far higher than the official tally, claims the health agency, because of coronavirus deaths that were missed or undercounted in many countries. The World Health Organization says 70% of excess deaths were concentrated in just 10 nations, including India, Indonesia, Russia, Brazil, and the United States, which is close to reaching 1 million recorded COVID deaths. The Indian government has disputed the WHO's data estimates, calling them questionable. Benji Hire, Washington.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here. 603-283-6160. Coming up, video of, we'll play the audio track, of a state representative losing her mind today outside a abortion protest happening right outside the State House front doors here in New Hampshire. And there's a little bit of history with this state rep. We'll get into what all that is coming up here. With you in the studio tonight, though, it's Ian,
Matt,
and Joa.
Don't forget, you can join us online at freetalklive.com, where I want to thank Ron Dinion for being a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS Patreon, which you can join over at amps.freetalklive.com. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us get Free Talk Live onto more great radio stations around the country. We've got over 190 wonderful affiliate radio stations today, and we can have more. It just takes some time. It takes some effort. And it takes a little bit of money, so we appreciate those of you helping out, like Ron over there at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones first, though. We got Tom in Tennessee listening to WGOW in Chattanooga. Go ahead, Tom. Do we have Tom? Tom in Tennessee? Going once. Tom in Tennessee going twice. Not sure what happened to his cell phone. Maybe he's in a bad cell. We'll put him on hold. And in the meantime, try Major Payne calling from Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Hey, Ian.
Yes,
Can you hear me all right? Or
gotcha.
should I take it off speaker?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you guys were talking about the child snatching with the government and whatnot.
Yeah.
I got a couple tales about that. Almost 30 years ago, my wife, we just gotten divorced, and she absconded with the children and went down to Fairview, living in a trailer with some scumbag. Anyway, the kids only had like one pair of socks. My boy had to wash the socks out every night for my little girl. But the social workers got called on them. Turns out that this broad that they called had her children taken away from her. And she's making calls on everybody else.
What?
Yeah. No BS. This is 30 years ago. Oh, well, 25 maybe. But,
so she was snitching on other parents?
Well, I don't know who snitched on who or how they came down, but yeah, the woman that was in charge of taking away people's children had her own children removed.
See. Oh, I see.
Okay, and now the next generation, my daughter, she took her kid in for the youngest one, little Rosie. She took her into the hospital for some damn thing, and I guess they gave her a blood test and they found THC in her system. I don't know if it was from secondhand smoke or what, but she ended up having to leave the state and abscond to Arizona because the Department of Social Services was going to snatch all of her kids.
That's nuts. They went after our friend Jay Noon for that too. That was the first encounter they had with DCYF. Is somehow they found out that his wife had allegedly used marijuana during pregnancy.
And Major Payne, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you don't sound like a stockbroker from New York City.
No, sir.
You sound like a pretty blue collar, all American kind of dude from the country.
I'm a carpenter.
You're a carpenter. So do you think these people who are largely flatlanders and lowlanders, they're going and, they think it's okay to take other people's kids because they don't agree with their lifestyle, and the kids end up getting delivered to city people or richer people other places, is what's going on?
No, I don't think it's right to be able to take anyone's children.
Right. It doesn't make sense though. It seems like it's basically a child trafficking operation.
Yeah, people live different ways. They have different beliefs, and one side seems to have a lot more power in this area than others.
Right, but the DCYF people aren't from around here. These are
they're city people,
college-educated city people coming up to farm country and making judgments about the cultural situations they don't even understand.
Yeah, the lady that was threatening Jay Noon's family looked like she was a butch dyke.
Oh yeah, that's
straight out of the city.
Yep.
These city people, they see a free-range pig and they want to steal your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the southern border. They can't get enough of these babies.
What do you mean by that?
Well, how porous the border is. There's all kinds of human trafficking going on across that border.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Major Payne, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number is 603-283-6160. Speaking of babies, people are freaking out on both sides. Political spectrum, lefties, righties, they're out in the streets. They're out at state houses. They're protesting. Apparently they were so scary at the Supreme Court that the government built a fence around the Supreme, like a big giant metal fence, gated fence, to keep the protesters away. From both sides. People are having conflicts, the police are coming out, etc. And earlier today, apparently, one of the state representatives here in New Hampshire, Susan DeLemus, a name that if you've listened to the show in the last several months, you've heard before on Free Talk Live, and that's because her name came up during the independence events that happened here when New Hampshire was looking at the state house was looking at the question of whether they should pass a ballot measure that would allow the people to vote on New Hampshire declaring peaceful independence from the United States. This woman was on the committee that heard that thing. Now, we were there. Joe, you were there for that, right?
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, so all three of us, we were there that night. And if you stayed till the very end, this woman gave a speech at the very end. And she stood up and she said, I love the Free State. I'm paraphrasing, right? She said, I think Free Staters are great and I'm with you. I just want you to know that I'm with you. And she had made a promise to Alu Axelman from the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence that she was going to vote for this bill. And then she didn't. In fact, it got 21-0 or something. It was completely shut out by the committee. So she did not vote for the bill.
We remember this. We will remember her for this.
And then one of the independent supporting reps contacted her privately and said, Susan, what's going on? You said that you were going to do this. Now, of course, it's not uncommon for a politician to say one thing and do another thing, so we shouldn't be surprised. But this woman is the wife of a guy named Jerry DeLemus. And if you paid attention to the Bundy Ranch situation from 2013 now, almost a decade ago.
It's been a while.
Jerry DeLemus was a New Hampshire guy who went all the way out to the Bundy Ranch to stand with those folks. And then when the feds, of course, they didn't arrest anybody at the ranch. They came after them later once they were alone in their homes, and they went and they arrested them. He was one of the few, it might have been the only one, that took a plea deal. And his plea deal was 5 years in prison.
Ouch.
He must be really feeling an ouch because all the people that went to trial got found not guilty in those cases. So he got screwed big time. And, I mean, you want to talk about a woman that has a reason to have a huge chip on her shoulder about the federal government? This lady is it.
She should be it.
But no, she voted against the independence bill. She voted against people being able to make a decision about independence. And then she did it again on the State House floor after she had apologized to one of the other state reps saying, I'm sorry for what I did in the committee. I'll get it right this time. I'll get it right when this comes to the State House floor. Nope. She lied again. And now she's losing her mind outside the State House. Here's what happened today. That's her.
Shame on you killing babies! You're a murderer! You're a murderer! You're a murderer! You're a murderer! Shame on you! I'm a murderer! I murdered my own babies! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on all of you!
So I take it she's got post-abortion regret herself?
Looks that way. Looks that way.
I think she went and had an abortion right after that. I'm just kidding.
She turned in and go to the State House, but you've got what looks like some number of several dozen, if not 100 protesters. It's hard to really see. The camera doesn't pan over, but a large cacophony of noise coming from the protesters there, and she is just losing her mind. And this doesn't help anybody, getting this angry. Even if you do feel so strongly about this issue, you're not going to persuade anyone by getting this upset. But nonetheless, I just thought it was an interesting little clip. We'll continue here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. Maybe you've been at one of these protests and you've seen some freakouts. You want to talk about that?
I appreciate her passion. I do, but that's not how you're going to win people over.
Yeah, if only she had passion for individual liberty. There's more coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
We are back with more Free Talk Live. The phones are open if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Ian, Matt, and Joa in the studio tonight. You can bring up anything you want. 603-283-6160. We're talking about people freaking out. Specifically a state representative here in New Hampshire. Her name's Susan DeLemus, losing her mind in front of a group of protesters outside of the State House today, where she screamed at them that she's a murderer. No, she points her finger and she says, "You're a murderer, you're a murderer, you're a murderer." And then she says, I'm a murderer. And admits that she apparently at some point went through an abortion procedure. Well, if that's really true, then why don't you, lock yourself away or something? What exactly does she want to happen to these women exactly? This is a question that
it sounds like she's trying to protect women from making bad decisions that she made, and that's a moral judgment of hers that she's trying to foist upon the rest of society.
Projecting.
But the reality is you cannot protect people from making that decision,
Correct.
even if you criminalize it, because they will continue to seek out the procedure, even if it means having to leave the state and go and get it somewhere else, or if it means going underground to a black market doctor, an underground abortion clinic or something like that, and having it done in a potentially dangerous circumstance, right? Because if you get black market abortions, they're going to be as dangerous as black market drugs and black market other things that prostitution or whatever, where you're going to get a disease or bringing the black market into any product or service inevitably makes it a high risk activity. Just because you're dealing with criminals in order to be able to get it. So I always like to ask the people that want to prohibit these things, what do you want to see happen to these folks? Do you want to put these women in jail? You just called them a murderer, right? Like murderers generally go to prison. And then usually when you ask them that question, they'll back down and they'll say, oh, no. Well, we should punish the doctors. The doctors should go to jail or have their licenses revoked or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and now they're talking about... the one meme I found funny in this whole thing is the leftists are coming out promoting horse
pills.
Horse pills,
yeah, horse medicine.
as a makeshift abortion aid.
Oh yeah, the hypocrisy on both sides is just
incredible,
so clear for those of us who are outside of this whole conflict to look at. Of course, they don't see it. Right? You got the leftists, as you're saying, embracing horse medicine now after criticizing people on the right for doing the same thing during COVID. You've got the leftists who are saying they're back to saying my body, my choice, which they'd abandoned completely during COVID because they were then, wanting to force vaccines on people. But now, of course, the right wing's done the opposite. During COVID, the right wingers embraced my body, my choice, and were acting like they'd seen the light on that particular issue. We knew that wasn't the case. And now, once again, the right wingers are saying, no, your body, our choice. We get to tell you what to do.
Right.
So I think the solution here is Brave New World, and we grow babies in labs, so you can't say my body, my choice.
Yeah, but then what do you do about all the people with the ability to make babies? Do you force...
They wear yellow coats.
Yeah, they wear doctors' jackets, and they...
do you want to force sterilize people or incentivize that somehow?
I think like I've always said about abortion, and it's very limited opinion, is that if you don't like something that they're doing, you can convince them out of it. I mean, you can't
Persuasion.
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 You can't force anyone to do anything. You know,
It gets really ugly if you do.
I think, like, personally, I think abortion's wrong. Like, I don't think people should be doing it. And you know, you've taking on this responsibility into your body, and you should probably fulfill this responsibility. You took a risk. You have to take control of your consequences. But just to reject that consequence on a whim and thinking you're gonna get surgery is gonna solve the problem. No, you're gonna have further health problems and all that stuff. I mean, I can break it down all day, but the reality is that no, I don't think there could ever be a law saying that people shouldn't be able to do it.
This is the difference between the libertarian viewpoint on abortion and everybody else. Everybody else wants to use the state to mandate something or other. They either want to force, if they're on the left, they want to force the taxpayers to pay for abortions, even if they're morally opposed to them. And then if you're on the right, this woman's up here saying you're a murderer. That suggests that she wants to put these people in prison. Right? So you get this insane viewpoint of, okay, well, let's go lock up the people who do things that we disagree with. And I understand their argument as well. It's a person, so therefore homicide laws should apply. There's an article that Louisiana's likely going to treat abortion as homicide.
Wow.
Which suggests that if you're going to lock the doctor up, then the woman's got to be an accessory to murder. Right?
That's what I love. Like all these outside, political parties, they all call libertarians like a cult. But look what you guys, like, especially on the abortion issue, look at the left and the right. They're wicked cultists when it comes to abortion.
I wonder how many of these screeching harpies really care about my body, my choice. I think they're just taking a popular side.
Yeah.
I don't think they really care. I think what Free Talk Live does constantly is all we're doing here is documenting a society with zero principles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phones here. Bad Slave is on the line in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Bad Slave.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I just, Susan DeLumis and Jerry, her husband, are very conservative, I'd say Christian type of people.
Never would have guessed.
To hear her screaming like that is just very kind of sad to me. I think that there's an actual pretty simple solution to the unwanted pregnancy arrangement. I think that what they call the morning after pill, I think it's codenamed RU486 or something like that. And what that does to the pregnancy is it blocks the uterus from accepting the egg. So which is kind of a normal thing to occur on a pretty high percentage basis.
You're saying the fertilized egg never makes it into the uterus?
It never implants.
Okay.
For what I know, it's this pill is high potassium.
It gets flushed out with the next cycle. And
it forces a cycle is what it does.
I'm sure there are conservatives out there that consider that to be murder too.
Yeah, but it's the fact is that the body and the egg itself end up choosing that result quite regularly, and so if you take a pill, if you have that as an over-the-counter option, then, it just, the whole thing just kind of, disappears into, the past. And
I get what you're saying, and that is available out there for folks that want it. It's been around for what, couple decades, 2 or 3 decades or something like that. Thank you, Bad Slave, for the call. The number is 603-283-6160. But again, there's a bunch of these, people that are in the halls of power that, like this DeLumis, who will say, I would just presume she would say that that's also murder, right? Because you are stopping God. You are stopping the process from occurring, even though, as he points out, it could happen naturally. You're incentivizing it to happen, so therefore you're a murderer. That's what these people believe. And I don't want to live in a place that is so insane. And luckily, New Hampshire does not appear to be one of the most insane states. In fact, it doesn't have a whole lot of regulations on abortion at this time. Surprisingly, even Chris Sununu, the governor, came out and made a statement that he is not supporting any further regulations on abortion. There was something that they passed, I think, a few months ago that I believe was some sort of a late-term restriction. I think it was like over 24 weeks, if I recall correctly.
That was an executive order, right?
No, that was no. That has to go through the legislature, and it did. So, of course, the leftists are upset about it, but all things considered,
I think
New
24 weeks is the age, like the new accepted age of survivability.
Okay. So that's what I don't know. I didn't read the legislation. I've seen people talking about it in the last couple of days.
It's pretty common. It was a big deal because it was New Hampshire, but I think most states have that. A similar.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked closely at the map, but I went to the Planned Parenthood website where they have one of those, infographic maps with different colors on the different states. And New Hampshire is one of the lightest shades of red, so it's like deep red is the most restrictive, and then there's light pink or whatever. There's near to no restrictions or no restrictions. New Hampshire doesn't have no restrictions, but it's still in that same category of no restriction. It's the restrictions in New Hampshire are so light. Planned Parenthood considers it essentially a free state for abortion. So New Hampshire is kind of a mixed bag. It's got these people like Susan DeLemus, but on a lot of issues, she's good. I mean, she's pro-freedom in a lot of ways. It's just a lot of these so-called liberty reps aren't really libertarians. They're just conservatives that agree with us on economic issues.
Right.
And when
Linos.
and when it comes to, let's say, the war on drugs, or when it comes to your bodily freedom and bodily autonomy, when it comes to abortion, they certainly don't sound like libertarians at all. There's more coming up here. If you want to join us, 603-283-6160, you can join us here on Free Talk Live. Hour 3 next. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Hong Kong, I'm Richard Kimber. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian city of Mariopol. More than 400 people have been helped to safety in the last week. Sarah Walton reports.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Thursday that another humanitarian ceasefire was in place in Mariupol after 2 previous operations. He said the evacuation is being led by the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross, but that no further information would be released until the operation was complete. The ceasefires come after Guterres met with both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine last week to negotiate safe corridors for civilians trying to flee the fighting. The Secretary-General said the UN believes there are still civilians trapped at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and that negotiations will continue with Ukrainian and Russian forces about the establishment of future ceasefires and for access for humanitarian aid. Sarah Walton, New York.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter. The world's richest man is on the cusp of buying the social media platform for $44 billion. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
According to a new SEC filing, Elon Musk has secured around $5.2 billion in equity commitments from 18 investors, plus a rollover of nearly 35 million Twitter shares from one large investor. The financing is another indication that the Tesla and SpaceX CEO is in a strong position to follow through on his bid to buy Twitter and make it a private company pending regulatory approval. Musk says he intends to better protect free speech on Twitter, which has raised concerns from some about the type of content moderation or lack thereof he is planning. According to the network CNBC, Musk is also planning to become Twitter's interim CEO when the deal closes.
And nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization. That's almost 3 times more than the number officially recorded. Benji Hire reports.
The WHO's excess mortality figures reflect people who died from COVID-19, as well as those who died indirectly due to the outbreak, such as those who couldn't access treatment for other conditions when healthcare systems were overwhelmed. But the numbers are also far higher than the official tally, claims the health agency, because of coronavirus deaths that were missed or undercounted in many countries. The World Health Organization says 70% of excess deaths were concentrated in just 10 nations, including India, Indonesia, Russia, Brazil and the United States, which is close to reaching 1 million recorded COVID deaths. The Indian government has disputed the WHO's data estimates, calling them questionable. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We've made it to the end of the week, so today we're going to hear from Benedict Cumberbatch, star of the latest Marvel film, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The trailer alone is quite something.
I did what I had to do.
You opened the doorway between universes. We don't know who or what will walk through it.
You might say it is a marvel that Marvel has become such a significant player on the big screen, giving characters that in the case of Doctor Strange first featured in comics back in 1963 an entirely new lease on life. So how do the stars of these films keep the plot lines under wraps, given the enormous public speculation about them? Well, it turns out that sometimes even Benedict Cumberbatch isn't quite sure what to expect when he first sees the film.
I want the fans to have the same experience that I do when I watch one of these films, which I have done until I started playing Strange, and then I'm sort of a participant. But even so, I'm sitting in my own audience going, oh my goodness, I had no idea that it would be realised like that as far as the visual effects go, or the environment, or whatever it is I'm battling against or working with. And I want to sit there and have that thrill. I don't mind playing that game for those who share that, and I know a lot of people want a bit more. I mean, my goodness, that's quite an eventful trailer. So I think people have had a lot of fun playing around with theories.
They certainly have. A social media frenzy, boosted of course by the studios themselves, is now critical in determining a film's financial success. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian capital of Mariupol. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter, and the World Health Organization says that nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19. That's almost 3 times more than the official number recorded. And that's the latest feature story news. Richard Kimber.
A harrowing situation on Broad Street came to its conclusion Thursday night as a group of hostages were freed from local comedy club The Laugh Up Lounge after a tense 7-minute stand-up set.
Every once in a while he'd grab his notebook and I'd think maybe this is it. Maybe he's gonna let us go. But he just kept talking.
Additionally, The Onion recovered this video footage from the cell phone of one of the many captives.
Hey, sir, what do you do for work?
If someone sees this, help us. Please help us.
Yeah, micromanagement. You guys are totally gonna wang it out.
Oh my God, no.
Cool. I'm not a religious person, but at one point I said the Lord's Prayer, and it actually had a calming effect. Like Jesus was standing next to me and said, "You're going to get through this."
I mean, sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't take life for granted, because you just never know when something like this could happen. So,
this is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us right here. We kick off the third hour. Phones are open at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Joa.
And you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to freetalklive.com. You can download archives of the show there. Just click them, download them, enjoy. They go back for many years for free at freetalklive.com. We're going to go right back into your phone calls and thoughts, but we are once again talking about the Roe versus Wade potential, likely, it seems, reversal of that coming from the Supreme Court. We don't know when that's going to happen, because what everybody is all up in a tizzy about this week is a draft majority opinion. So that suggests that this has already been voted on by the Supreme Court, and they're just finalizing their paperwork or whatever, and then eventually they'll release it publicly. But it's been leaked, so now everybody kind of knows what's coming, and protests have started. They're all over the place, state capitals, in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, even maybe in your local city. We have one here in Keene, New Hampshire yesterday. Apparently at least 40 people came out to it in less than 24 hours notice. So we're going to continue with your calls and thoughts. And of course, the real good thing out of this is that it's going to hopefully divide people in the United States even further. And hopefully it will result in more people migrating physically to be in places where they fit better.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if you like the idea of abortion and you're living in Texas, you might want to start to plan to leave, because according to the story here at theatlantic.com that was published recently about this, they say that according to this story here, they think the divide between red and blue states on abortion rights will become starker if the Supreme Court follows through on overturning Roe. Nearly half the states already have laws in place that would restrict or ban abortion once that happens. So those laws, they're there. Many of them are there since prior to Roe versus Wade. They've never been taken off the books. And so once Roe versus Wade gets overturned, then the states are in charge again, and so therefore those laws are in effect. It says here, many Americans know that Texas's ban on abortion after about 6 weeks gestation, but last year the state legislature passed and Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill that would ban all abortions in the state 30 days after the Supreme Court overturns Roe, with no exceptions for rape, incest, or all but the most severe health complications. That means abortion could be prohibited in the nation's second largest state sometime this summer.
Maybe what they're trying to do is secretly get rid of the Californians that have been migrating to Texas.
Could very well be. And, to that end, I hope they're successful. And I hope California is successful in getting rid of the conservatives and having them move to Texas and Florida or whatever. Let's go to Duncan. He's in Missouri listening in Lebanon. Go ahead, Duncan.
Hey, so guys, I think America has lost its moral compass, in my opinion. The pregnancy is not the problem. It's, in a lot of cases, it's unmarried folks having sex, and they can't deal with the consequences in what I would consider a rational way. They're just they're killing a life.
Why would you want to force those people to have a baby?
Well, I would hope that they would understand that, I'm everything. I try to live my life from a biblical perspective, and that's pretty tough. But when you have sex out of wedlock, I think that's God's way to keep married people together. After they have a fight, they have sex, and they save their marriage. But we have a lot of people that are just having sex to fulfill their feelings or whatever they're into, and when they have a pregnancy, they just do away with that, and there's just huge consequences from those actions of having sex out of wedlock.
Sure. I mean, one of the consequences of having sex in general can be having babies and actually going through with it, and then having a child that you don't want and possibly having them become abused as a result of that in a family that is not loving and is not welcoming. And that happens too. A lot of kids happen on accident. And, so again, you didn't really answer my question, though. Are you saying that these people should somehow be prohibited from having out-of-wedlock sex?
No, I'm saying that we're not going to be able to regulate that.
Okay.
It just seems like we have lost our path. It's acceptable in our culture for anything goes, and with anything goes, then murdering unborn children is acceptable.
Now, murder is a pretty harsh word, right? Like murder suggests it's premeditated. That's first-degree murder, typically.
Yep. That's where I'm going.
Are you saying that those people who have an abortion, in your mind, are committing murder and therefore should go to prison or be executed?
So they are, whether they realize that or not.
Like a mental prison, you're saying?
Well, if it's outlawed in Missouri, then it's a moot point. Then they're not.
But I'm asking what you support.
I understand people people don't like the frying pan. People don't like to. I think us as taxpayers paying for children in general is wrong to be born, with the Medicaid. And, I had 5 small children and, we drove really crappy vehicles, but I
just want to clarify. You're saying you think it's wrong for taxpayers to fund other people having babies? Because I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think
you should support abortion.
Right. Because
that's just it. I don't agree that we should support abortion. And, I think we're going to...
Well, hold on. I want to clarify something. I don't think you should be forced to pay for people having babies, and I don't think you should be forced to pay for abortion either. I don't think anyone should be forced to pay for the medical choices and consequences that befall other individuals.
I'd like to make a point on this, is that you should be encouraging the left to support abortion because they'll just depopulate themselves, and we won't have to worry about the left anymore.
Well, but the problem is the divorce rate in the church. We've dwarfed to the world. I'm saying a true believer is going to have a distinction in their mind between murder and not murder. I mean, to me, it's just I don't even understand that concept. But I'm 53. I'm not a teenager. The concept of abortion. The concept of there's a lot of things.
You didn't address what Joe said. I don't know. Maybe you didn't understand his question. I think the point he was making was that if abortion is legal and relatively easy to access, then you will likely have your political opponents using it more often than your friends.
And then they'll cease to exist eventually.
It's not, to me, abortion is not a political weapon, and I think the right, in a lot of sense, is using it to feed their people red meat. Abortion is wrong. I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal. I mean,
but you understand that if you outlaw abortion and let's say the prohibition is successful, and of course we know here on Free Talk Live that it won't be. It drives the action underground. It makes it more dangerous, makes it much more risky, more expensive. But let's just say it was successful and you managed to stop abortions from happening. Well, people are going to keep having sex and they're going to keep having these unintended pregnancies. And now you're going to force them to have these children. It's going to put more people on welfare. It's going to put more babies out there in the hands of mothers and fathers who don't want them. And then they're going to maybe they're going to grow up to be liberals themselves. And then they're going to be, voting against you. So why would you want that?
The funny thing of it is, with all the people that I know that want children and can't have children, but the red tape involved in trying to adopt children and the costs involved and the legal system that we've entailed, I think all of these unwanted pregnancies, I think there's room for all of these unborn. And I think it's a tragedy that they aren't on planet Earth today,
Well, Duncan, I will agree with you that it is way too hard, from what I understand from people who've tried to adopt children. It's way too costly, way too difficult, and so that definitely does need to change.
I don't want him to get all preachy, but the Bible talks about marriage as intercourse. They don't talk about how it's a ceremony and that sort of thing. They literally talk, they were married, as in they had intercourse.
Thank you, Duncan, for the call tonight. I do appreciate your thoughts. Appreciate you calling and sharing with us. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can join us. Bring up whatever's on your mind here on Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
You know how annoying it is when someone keeps stopping mid-sentence as though he or she were asking you a series of questions? Avoid doing that. It sounds unnervingly tentative, and it imposes upon the listener to help you complete the thought. And if you're a job seeker, this alone could be a deal killer. An effective communicator sounds more confident. Complete the thought. Avoid making the listener impatient. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. Cutting through the clutter rather than blending into the blah, blah, blah will help you connect better no matter what the conversation. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook. Survivalspeech.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up in less than 2 months, Fork Fest is just around the corner. And by the way, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which comes before Fork Fest, is basically sold out. They've sold over 3,000 tickets this year. And
that's nuts.
Yeah, they originally had intended only to sell 2,500 because that was how many they sold last year, and they considered it a sold-out packed park. But they're packing in another 500 people, so it's going to be tight. If you want a little bit of a looser environment, a little less packed, come on out to Fork Fest. Some would say more fun. Depends on your definition of fun. But Fork Fest is decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost at all. And no one is in charge. And that means there's no centralized schedule or anything like that. So you kind of got to figure out what's going on. You got to talk to people.
Yeah.
You got to get around and meet folks.
It's a word of mouth for sure.
Yeah, and you can go to forkfest.party. You can learn more and get connected with many of the attendees there through the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms. These are all unofficial chats and websites. There's no official anything with Forkfest because, again, it is decentralized. There's no board of directors. There's no organizer except for each individual. So you get to organize yourself. You organize your own campsite. You want to put something on. Maybe you want to cook for people or host karaoke or a poker game or whatever. You got to make it happen. So it's more for the self-starters. But if you just want to come chill out with other freedom-loving folks, you can do that too.
I organized a little swim, and everyone's like coming up to me like, "Hey, I heard you're the organizer of Fork Fest." I'm like, No.
Which that was super fun, by the way.
Yeah,
that's funny. I was looking through my phone trying to delete stuff the other day because I was running out of memory, and I found pictures and like video of that was super fun.
Where was it? Like a local lake or something? Where'd you guys go?
What is that place?
That was Upper Falls.
Upper Falls.
Yeah,
it's like these natural rock formations. It's beautiful. Like tucked back in the woods, but I mean, it's a very popular place. There's lots of cars parked along the roads and stuff around there.
That's cool.
But you can jump off of these really high rocks into these deep swimming holes. It's super fun.
I was referred to Derek J's video from the previous year, so 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago. I don't remember, but yeah, I saw his video. I'm like, we need to find this place. So,
he went to the same spot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Previously.
Cool. So check it out, forkfest.party, and schedule. I didn't tell you the dates. June 27th through July 3rd. That is the dates this year. You can attend the whole thing or a part of the thing. If you come on the weekend, keep in mind there are other people in the park who attend for the fireworks. So there's Forkfest goes on all week, and then the fireworks are sort of the culmination of the event on the weekend. People come in from all around the region for this fireworks show because it's absolutely amazing. So things get busier. You want to make sure you lock down your campsite, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground, June 27th through July 3rd. And we'll look forward to seeing you out there and celebrate Independence Day with Free Talk Live and some other freedom-loving folks there at forkfest.party. Let's go to the phones. Edward's calling from out there. You're on Free Talk Live, Edward.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hey, what's on your mind?
So, I basically, I've always been a huge Free Talk Live fan for at least since 2011, and have turned many people on the show. I've amplified for over 4 years up until the Crypto 6 deal. So I'm a huge fan. If I ever needed to know how to start a radio show or to do anything, I absolutely would reach out to Ian at Free Talk Live, and sales, I'd reach out to Mark, Free Talk Live, and Mark's a legend. And I've loved all of your hosts who've come throughout the years.
All right, but why were you calling tonight?
So that's your specialty. Your specialty is in radio, and my specialty is being outside. I've been outside my whole whole life. I was born in the 70s. I know what the soil's like. I know what bugs are in there. I know what the sky's like. I know the planes that are up there. So just getting my credibility out of the way, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the weather, and that the weather has changed the last 30 years. That's not an overstatement by any means. So the weather is changing, and the reason it's changing is because intentional climate modification by these geoscientists and geoengineers all throughout the NATO countries, and they're doing it and getting paid through Defense Research Project Analysis, DARPA. So that's my start. If anybody wants to jump in really quick.
So you're talking about what you're saying is chemtrails are real.
I'm not even mentioning terms. I'm not mentioning anything. I always use their terms. Their term is intentional climate modification.
How are they doing it though?
Well, you guys, that's one of the ways is barium, strontium, and aluminum, and these different things. But they've got cloud making machines, which are on rivers down in Alabama. They've got 150,000 acres on these rivers. And there's a whole marketplace for this
cloud-making
as well.
machine.
Yeah,
What
they're
is that?
super impressive machines.
In Boston, okay, you've heard of the what's the name of that casino there?
No clue.
Encore. Right next to Encore, there's a place called Rain for Rent. As in, they will create clouds so that it rains, and you could, I guess, hire them to make it rain on Encore.
100%.
Yeah, this is a thing,
Go ahead,
and
sorry.
they're all over the country. But there are companies out there, aviation companies that do the spraying. Now, they don't ever use the term chemtrail. Chemtrail is the conspiracy theory term, but they do use the term geoengineering, cloud seeding, weather modification. These are things that they actually do, and they admit it. There's corporations out there that actually do.
Oh, it's out of the bag now. This is no secret. They're front and center with all this stuff right now.
I think Bill Gates was a big promoter of that too. Hasn't Bill Gates come out and said that that's something that we should be looking into or something? And he probably knows full well that it's been going on for 25 years or whatever.
100% he knows it's been going on for over 20 years. A lot of this stuff started once NATO because they had access to because it has to be run through the military and military funding, plus clearance. All these guys have clearance. Everybody from the pilots down to the people who load the planes, the chemicals. I mean, I've watched these guys TED Talks. I've watched these guys. So I'm pretty knowledgeable just in the subject of that. This is an industry. It's a massive industry. And as much as Fauci runs the infectious disease and all the funding through that, you better believe there's a disease through controlling the weather. You can go back to LBJ, to Kennedy, all these things, because they started patenting all this stuff back in the 40s and 50s through
Sure,
military.
I mean, there's no secret about cloud seeding. That's old technology.
This isn't like just cloud seeding, though. This isn't spraying silver iodide or whatever into the atmosphere.
Well, that's the
rain.
thing. Like, we know cloud seeding's a real thing, but I don't know if there's any evidence for this barium or aluminum or whatever. There's been people saying that stuff for years, but there's never been any proof of it.
That's
where
not
do
true
you
either.
want to get proof from, though, Ian?
How could you get the proof of it?
Collect the rain.
The first person who ever got proof of this, correct me, caller, if I'm wrong, but the first person I ever saw bring forth proof was a high school chemistry teacher who went out and collected a rain sample right after she saw it. Right after a heavy spray day.
G. Edward Griffin, in his documentary in 2016, gets as many scientists in there. They go to Mount Shasta, and it's over 70,000 times of what man should ingest in aluminum and all these different things. And this is from Mount Shasta out in California.
Yeah, and the high school chemistry teacher I was
weather.com. Just really quick, go to weather.com or go to Weather Channel or anywhere you can get an upcoming forecast of weather. You could type in Athens, Greece, Melbourne, Australia. You could type in anything, and I'll tell you exactly what it's going to say. If you want to, I don't know if you want to keep me. It's fine if you don't.
Yeah, hang on, Edward. I just, I'm a pretty big skeptic on this one. I've seen a lot of crazy people looking up in the sky saying, "Oh my God, it's chemtrails," and they believe that every single contrail in the sky is a chemtrail. And I'm sorry, I think it's ridiculous paranoia. There's more coming up at 603-283-6160. That's not to say there haven't been things that have happened. More coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Hong Kong, I'm Richard Kimber. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian city of Mariopol. More than 400 people have been helped to safety in the last week. Sarah Walton reports.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Thursday that another humanitarian ceasefire was in place in Mariupol after 2 previous operations. He said the evacuation is being led by the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross, but that no further information would be released until the operation was complete. The ceasefires come after Guterres met with both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine last week to negotiate safe corridors for civilians trying to flee the fighting. The Secretary-General said the UN believes there are still civilians trapped at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and that negotiations will continue with Ukrainian and Russian forces about the establishment of future ceasefires and for access for humanitarian aid. Sarah Walton, New York.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter. The world's richest man is on the cusp of buying the social media platform for $44 billion. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
According to a new SEC filing, Elon Musk has secured around $5.2 billion in equity commitments from 18 investors, plus a rollover of nearly 35 million Twitter shares from one large investor. The financing is another indication that the Tesla and SpaceX CEO is in a strong position to follow through on his bid to buy Twitter and make it a private company pending regulatory approval. Musk says he intends to better protect free speech on Twitter, which has raised concerns from some about the type of content moderation or lack thereof he is planning. According to the network CNBC, Musk is also planning to become Twitter's interim CEO when the deal closes.
And nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization. That's almost 3 times more than the number officially recorded. Benji Hire reports.
The WHO's excess mortality figures reflect people who died from COVID-19, as well as those who died indirectly due to the outbreak, such as those who couldn't access treatment for other conditions when healthcare systems were overwhelmed. But the numbers are also far higher than the official tally, claims the health agency, because of coronavirus deaths that were missed or undercounted in many countries. The World Health Organization says 70% of excess deaths were concentrated in just 10 nations, including India, Indonesia, Russia, Brazil, and the United States, which is close to reaching 1 million recorded COVID deaths. The Indian government has disputed the WHO's data estimates, calling them questionable. Benji Hire, Washington.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Matt, and Joa.
You can bring up anything you want, and we got a guy on the line who is talking about geoengineering, and the conspiracy, of course, name for that is chemtrails. I've been a long-time skeptic on this one. People have been calling about this for as long as we've been on the air, basically, for like the last decade and a half. And there's a lot of really great information online. A lot of claims are being made. A lot of supposed evidence. The website I really like to go to debunk a lot of these claims is called contrailscience.com. I highly recommend it, contrailscience.com. They get into the actual science of how contrails work. But that aside, there are people who do want to do some of the things that you're talking about. I don't remember the guy's name, but the last time this came up, we pulled up this essay from some guy. He wrote a book. I don't remember if he was with the World Economic Forum or whoever he was, but one of these guys with connections to governments, or he's like an academic or whatever. He had the idea of blocking out the sun, and I think, Joey, you pulled something up about that during the break, about this plan to spray aluminum filings or something in the air to supposedly block the sunlight out, right?
So, they talk about all kinds of things. They talk about diamond dust. And
yeah. Those people are real. They really are out there. Edward is also out there, and that's where he said he's calling from tonight. I wanted to bring you back. So it's not to say there aren't people that have plans like this, and that there may not have been I'm not going to say there haven't been experiments For instance, I lived in Florida. There was a thing called malathion that they sprayed. It was like supposedly to deal with mosquitoes. Of course, it failed. But it actually was pretty clear they were spraying this stuff, right? Like there wasn't no conspiracy theory. If you were out at the right time, you saw it happening, and it got on stuff, right? Like you could see it on people's cars and things like that. So there's no doubt about it. But with a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of doubt about it because it's ultimately just a bunch of paranoid kooks looking up at the sky, at the sky and saying, "Oh my God, it's chemicals! They're poisoning us." They literally look up there every time they look at the sky. They believe they're looking at poison, but yet they don't walk around with a gas mask on.
Hey, Ian. Yeah. Ian. The thing is, when I can see blue skies ahead of me, and then planes start flying above me, and then hours later the sun is completely blocked out, you can say that's my imagination.
You won't convince Ian like that. You're not going to convince him. Ian is a guy. Ian and I have fought about this topic before. He's a hardcore skeptic, and you have to know something about Ian.
That's good.
He stays inside and stares at a screen all day.
Yeah, I've got to be like
life.
3 tones darker than him.
Yeah, and I too, Edward, I too am a guy who spent his entire childhood and a good portion of his adolescence and teenage years laying on his back, looking at the sky, learning all about planes, and then something was just different. And I'll never forget the day I noticed it was different.
Yes.
So, and I'm not an idiot. And I know what contrails look like. They're nice and puffy and white, and they disappear no more than 45 seconds after the plane drives by. It is true.
That's
Dude,
absolutely not true about contrails.
I'm telling you.
Contrails. They stay longer depending on the atmospheric conditions and temperatures.
That is true, too.
So you can stretch it out to 2 minutes. What they don't do.
Some can last for hours.
What they don't do. No, they do
they can.
not.
No way.
No, they don't.
This is old, settled science.
So, Edward.
Okay. But aside from the spraying and all that stuff, did you guys make it to weather.com or Weather Channel or anything like that and check out some upcoming forecasts?
Yeah, I did about 2 hours ago.
Weather.com definitely.
So you can look at Sydney, Dublin, Ireland. My favorite is Honolulu or places like San Diego, places that never get clouds. So look at an upcoming forecast, and you're going to see mostly cloudy, partly cloudy. You're going to see AM showers. But what you're not going to see hard, and definitely not back to back. If you see a back to back, that's going to be a rarity of sunny, no clouds. And clouds used to serve a purpose back when we were growing up. Clouds were made of water vapor, and they're there for a purpose because there's water vapor in the air. If it gets to be too much, it can't hold it. That's what rain is. So they've taken science, and now if you look at these clouds that just hover, they hover because they're heavy. They're not made to move. Plus, clouds, if you put metallics into the air, you can steer it through magnetism. So all this stuff has been, like I said, all this stuff is out. It's out on the table. They've known. And when David Keith has given his TED Talk in 2006, he has lots of tells in there saying,
was that the guy that wrote the book about the geoengineering stuff?
He's got a paper at Harvard called "The Case for Climate Engineering." Yeah. The Case for Climate Engineering.
I think this is the guy that maybe you had called about it before, but this is the guy that did a TED Talk. He's even criticized by people on the left because he's not like taken seriously even by a lot of people on the left because they're basically saying, this guy is he's not solving the root of the problem. From the left side of the perspective, climate change is happening due to all these reasons, right? Like cars or whatever.
Capitalism.
Yeah. And so they're saying this guy's just trying to cover it up by lowering the temperature of the earth through covering up the sun. So even they are against it. I mean, this dude's got a lot of opposition for what he's saying.
His job is for narrative. His job was to put the Bill Gates narrative out there in 2006, and I'm saying, Gates, this is all these climate modelers in the 90s who saw where the money was coming from. A lot of them switched fields. They were in different fields. A lot of them were in, let's say, vaccines or different things where the money came in. And they switched to this climate modeling.
So just to clarify, you believe that this geoengineering is done for weather modification purposes. You're not one of the chemtrails believers who believes that it's done for mind control or, poisoning.
This has to do with money. So at the end of the year, it's going to be about yearly average temperature. CO2 is completely off the table now. That's why when you look in articles now, you rarely see about carbon and CO2 and these things. That's yesterday's news.
And clarify
now,
something for me, Edward. When it
Sure.
comes to this plot, because this is a big plot, right? Like are you saying they're
It's
out
an
there
industry.
basically every single day, all over the United States, spraying these chemicals?
Days are different. But there's going to be something going on, whether it's in the horizon. If you see that wispy white out there, there's no wispy white in true nature. There's no wispy white. Wispy white is coming from man.
There are such things as, in my experience with chemtrails, what they turn into, they don't turn out wispy white. They have like a brownish, grayish, gross.
See, you can't even get the chemtrail believers to say the same thing.
No. It's climate modification. Ian, it's climate modification.
Okay, whatever you want to call it, man. You believe they're spraying aluminum and other metals and things like that.
But they are.
So how many thousands of pilots are involved in this conspiracy?
All the ones with the clearance to do it. So
Well, I'll
you're
tell
just
you-
telling me I'm make believing that these guys are up there and that I can't see the sun 2 or 3 hours later, man. I mean, I've been a Free Talk Live.
So there's
I
so
love you
many
guys.
pilots
So-
out there that are involved in this conspiracy, and not a single one has come out to say that they have done this.
It's easy to get
Politicians
paid.
do things without after getting paid. They don't speak a word of it ever again.
It's easy to get paid, and it's also easy to shut your mouth when you're getting paid great money, and they'll
Yeah,
tell you they
100%.
kill you if you defy them.
Can I read this thing
100%.
from the
security clearance? Please do.
This is from MIT Technology Review on technologyreview.com. And it says, where did this idea come from? It's not particularly a new idea. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson's Science Advisory Committee warned it might be necessary to increase the reflectivity of the Earth to offset rising greenhouse gas emissions. They have all these different excuses. There's actually 3 different kinds of excuses. One, to manipulate the weather, which most people is what they think it's for. The other is to reduce carbon. And then another one is, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something environmental, right? So it's not like they're trying to poison us. They're not attacking us. But it is quite interesting that when my friend has been doing samples for 10 years, and every time it's a high chemtrail day, even when it wasn't chemtrail days, she was doing rain samples and sending it into the lab and finding that there was
this
high.
the same one that believes the CIA planted Bitcoin in 1999?
Yes.
She's got no credibility. Thank you for the call, Edward. I appreciate hearing from you. And there's a lot of claims out there when it comes to chemtrails. Again, I'm not going to spend hours trying to debunk them all, but if you want to spend time reading on this, I recommend contrailscience.com. They'll explain what sublimation is and why that's a huge factor as to why it is some of these contrails last longer than others. More coming up here in moments. It's basic science. More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, the show where anyone can call about whatever they want. And we do mean anyone.
So are you saying that if government ran a dating service,
yes,
that society's problems would be solved?
Yes, actually they would. I know it's hard to believe, but it would.
Yeah, that's real hard to believe. I mean, there are dating services all over the place. Why would a government-run dating service be better?
No, they don't work. They're not Christian. They charge a lot of money.
What makes you think a government-run dating service would be better or Christian?
Yes, it would, because everybody would be in the same computer. Today it would be run by a computer. Everybody's knowledge of their existence and location would be in one place.
Let's say I disagree. What happens to me?
What happens if you disagree? Well, you can disagree, but does that mean you're not going to cooperate with us?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. Maybe I'd come over there and beat the hell out of you.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J.
To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can bring up anything you want. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt, and Joa.
And whether it is talking about the Roe versus Wade situation or just randomly calling in about chemtrails, certainly you're welcome to do it. And I'm definitely outnumbered in the studio here tonight. Both Matt and Joa are apparently true believers.
And now, don't you marginalize us by saying true believers.
Don't clump me in with everything that goes on with it, because there's a lot of crazy.
You did say you didn't believe that it was for poisoning people. Or for mind control.
Well, that would be like
who knows?
Theorizing.
Who knows what it's about?
Yeah. It's certainly, they do have barium, a little bit of.
Yeah, there's barium. There's a ton of barium in whatever they're spraying, and a ton of aluminum.
No evidence for it beyond some high school teacher who.
Oh my God! A high school chemistry teacher is an actual scientist who turned in her samples to an actual lab and got back actual results. What more do you want?
There's a chance she screwed up her collections.
Oh my God!
You know? I don't know. I don't have that in front of me. I don't know.
Do you want the government come out and tell you?
I guarantee you, there's a counter argument for everything that you've got. Just in the same way as the whole 9/11, the moon landing faked. I mean, all that stuff. You believe the moon landing's fake too, right?
I do believe the moon landing's fake.
Okay. There's counter evidence for all that
I thought that was idiotic the first time I heard it, and then a very logical person that I trust was the one that said it to me, and I was like, wait a minute.
I've looked at that one too. I mean, I've seen the purported evidence for it, and when you look at the evidence, it's like, wow. This looks like it was faked, and then you look at the counter evidence to it, and okay,
what's the counter evidence say? Because
you have to look it up, man. I haven't looked it up in years.
The one thing that caught me off guard about that was when they pointed out the multiple light, like shadows going in different directions when there's only one source of light in space.
Yeah, we'd have to look it up. I wasn't prepared for it, but there are websites out there, just like the old the documentary about the 9/11. Not the Alex Jones one, but there's another one that was really popular.
A legendary one called Loose Change.
That one.
Yeah.
And there's a whole counter to loose change out there. And then there's a counter to the counter to loose change. I mean, you can go down this rabbit hole as deep as you want to. There's people who have been arguing about this stuff on the internet forever. And ultimately what it comes down to for me is I don't want to live in the world where I believe I'm being poisoned every single way I turn. Where every time I look up at a beautiful sky, I start thinking about all the ways that I'm being killed by some crazy.
Wasn't that how statists
crazy
are created?
government
They're
plot.
afraid to admit that a government is actually running their lives.
No, it's this level of fear is what puts people into the situation of like COVID-19 paralysis. This is the same kind of thing that was pushed on people during COVID-19. It's like, ooh, you better be afraid. That person out there might breathe on you and that could kill you. And the same paranoia about, oh my God, every plane in the sky is poisoning you.
Well, I'm not telling people not to go outside.
I know you're not.
But
And
I
that's
am
the thing.
telling you, Ian, don't look up.
The most hardcore. And that's why, I don't, it's hard to really take these people serious. It's like they believe they're being poisoned. And again, you guys aren't saying it's poisoning, but there are chemtrails conspiracy people who believe that they are poisoning. That it's not for weather modification, but it's to poison people. It's like, okay, well, why not just poison the water supply?
Well, it might not. Well, that's the thing. It might not be for poisoning people. It might have poisoning people. Just might be a side effect they don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
It could be for some other
believe
purpose.
it's for mind control. I mean, there's all kinds of theories out there. Let's go to David. He's in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, David.
Yeah, I'm an airline transport pilot. We sprayed that stuff every trip.
You're lying.
We had these. No, lying about what?
You're not a transport pilot.
Well, you want to go to FAA.gov and look up my name?
Are you really?
Yeah, really.
Okay. So you're saying you've sprayed people with chemicals?
Well, let me change back into my lying voice. Yeah, we sprayed them every time, every trip, man. We, the chart cases, that we pilots carry, you think it's full of maps and stuff like that. Well, back in the day, there was maps. Now you got electronic stuff. But back in the day, we had map cases. Inside those map cases, they gave each of us these little Whippets containers. We go up in the cockpit, we screw them suckers in, and we spray whatever we want to spray that day. So all the airliners, all the pilots are all in on it, man. They're spraying you every different way, every different day with whatever they want to hit you with that day.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
I'll believe it when I see the conspiracy theorists out there wearing gas masks every day. They're not doing that.
It's a true story, man. But there's a bunch of stuff. Both sides of this argument, as I listen to, is both sides have things that are accurate and things that are false. Anything you're curious about? Since you got a real live airline transport
why were
pilot?
you calling in?
Oh wait, you're actually an airline transport pilot?
About contrails. I'm an airline transport pilot, and I listen to you guys talk about what pilots are doing, and then I think back about the thousands of hours I spent drilling holes in the sky, and I compared what you're saying to my experience. So, what would you like to know?
You called into the show, man. What did you want to tell us?
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you one thing. Like, for instance, you're a lady who collected samples that fell out of the sky. You don't know what fell out of the sky, whether it came from an airplane or if it was already in the sky from something else. And if you want to say, well, on the days when there was more contrail activity, that her readings were higher, what's that thing you always say, Ian? That
correlation is not equal to causation.
Right, exactly. So there's that. And somebody was talking about darker contrails. Well, in the older days, before the jets ran as efficiently as they did, the exhaust came out quite black in some instances, although you really still can't really see it. And what Ian said about the contrail activity, contrails are just clouds. They're no different than any other cloud, with the exception that they might have slightly higher level of particulate condensation nuclei, because they're forming the moisture that's associated in the air and in the exhaust has a small microscopic particle like diesel exhaust in order to condense around, which makes it easier to form cloud droplets around the exhaust coming out of the airplane. And then once they become a cloud, they're a cloud no different than any other natural cloud, and they last as long as any other natural cloud in the area would last. So sometimes you'll watch the exhaust coming out, and you'll see that 100 yards back of the airplane, the contrail's gone. Sometimes the planes aren't contrailing at all. Sometimes the contrail's 100 yards long. Sometimes it's a mile long before it dissipates. Other times it sits up there for hours. So that's all. That's all
long
science.
settled
fact.
science. Long settled.
Yeah. So, and there's a few other things that I noticed too that were not necessarily accurate. And here's another thing. Like the one guy that called in, and I'm not ripping on you, dude, but you got one thing wrong, is that the moisture in the air, it's when the air becomes saturated, 100% humidity. Well, let's say 99%. At 100%, it'll start falling out. But the rain doesn't come because the air has absorbed too much moisture, the air only absorbs what it can absorb. It absorbs all that it can based on the availability of the moisture. And what causes the moisture to fall out of the air is typically a change in temperature, but it can be some other disturbance like a pressure change, which would correspondingly probably change the temperature slightly enough, and you only got to change it like a half a degree for it to go from 100% or 99% humidity to 100%, and then it starts to fall out of the air. Or it could be if a moist air mass encounters particulate matter in the air, like the jet exhaust, that would cause it to go from suspended microscopic moisture vapor to an actual liquid droplet, which would then fall out of the air. So just the mere fact of an airplane flying through a highly humid piece of air, like in Florida, like if you watch planes take off in Florida, Ian may have done that on a really humid day, when the airplane rotates from on the runway and it rotates to go up, you might see like a cloud form off the tip of the wing because the pressure changed slightly. You got 95% humidity, and the airplane rotated. It changed its angle of attack. It dropped the pressure on one side of the wing and made a small area, a small pocket where there's now 100% humidity and there's water vapor, a little cloud off the tip of each wing. You probably notice that, especially like when the Blue Angels come by in Florida and do an air show. You'll see that all the time. So, there could be they could very well be spraying you with something, but you can't point up to the sky and say that that's evidence. Although I will say this, I remember too when I was a child that the skies were much bluer than what they are now. But I'm not sure if that's real or if I just had a happier days when I was a child and there were more birds singing and more blue sky when I was a kid than there are now that I'm an adult. Oh, also there's the increase in air traffic from the time when I was a kid to today is it's like it's a sweatpants phenomena. You notice everybody's flying in sweatpants? That's because all the lowlifes can afford to fly. So there's like 100 times.
Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely true that people's memories are not very good. I mean, they are just not accurate.
It's the chemtrails.
Sorry to say. Check out Contrail Science. There's a great article there, Matt, about how long contrails last.
I don't need to look at that, Ian.
Because you have a belief about it, right?
No, it's not. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've stared at airplanes ad nauseum my whole life watching the sky, and I know how long a contrail lasts. I know what they are. I know how they behave.
Said they only last
I understand
for 45
how
seconds.
relative humidity and temperature and barometric pressure work. I'm not dumb.
I just want to say, go to geoengineeringwatch.org and go to documents.
Get both sides. Contrailscience.com. You want to learn about science for like the last forever on how clouds work. Clouds, how do those work? Thanks for the call, David. Out of time for tonight. See you tomorrow. freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at lrn.fm.
From Feature Story News in Hong Kong, I'm Richard Kimber. The United Nations has confirmed a third evacuation operation is underway for civilians in the Ukrainian city of Mariopol. More than 400 people have been helped to safety in the last week. Sarah Walton reports.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Thursday that another humanitarian ceasefire was in place in Mariupol after 2 previous operations. He said the evacuation is being led by the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross, but that no further information would be released until the operation was complete. The ceasefires come after Guterres met with both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine last week to negotiate safe corridors for civilians trying to flee the fighting. The Secretary-General said the UN believes there are still civilians trapped at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and that negotiations will continue with Ukrainian and Russian forces about the establishment of future ceasefires and for access for humanitarian aid. Sarah Walton, New York.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk has raised an additional $7 billion to finance his purchase of Twitter. The world's richest man is on the cusp of buying the social media platform for $44 billion. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
According to a new SEC filing, Elon Musk has secured around $5.2 billion in equity commitments from 18 investors, plus a rollover of nearly 35 million Twitter shares from one large investor. The financing is another indication that the Tesla and SpaceX CEO is in a strong position to follow through on his bid to buy Twitter and make it a private company pending regulatory approval. Musk says he intends to better protect free speech on Twitter, which has raised concerns from some about the type of content moderation or lack thereof he is planning. According to the network CNBC, Musk is also planning to become Twitter's interim CEO when the deal closes.
And nearly 15 million people globally have died as a result of COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization. That's almost 3 times more than the number officially recorded. Benji Hire reports.
The WHO's excess mortality figures reflect people who died from COVID-19, as well as those who died indirectly due to the outbreak, such as those who couldn't access treatment for other conditions when healthcare systems were overwhelmed. But the numbers are also far higher than the official tally, claims the health agency, because of coronavirus deaths that were missed or undercounted in many countries. The World Health Organization says 70% of excess deaths were concentrated in just 10 nations.